I'll show you how to create a 2x8 fascia on this gabled roof building. I'm going to go to my roof tools and select roof fascia. And I'll notice that the existing fascia is a flat 1x12 fascia. And I don't want to use that. That's a pretty deep and thin fascia, susceptible to warping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new type. So I'll click Edit Type. I'll duplicate the existing type, and I'll call this fascia flat 2x8. Click OK. And then what I'll do is over in the profile parameter, I'll drop this down and see if I have a 2x8 to work with. I don't, so I need to create a new profile to use for that. So I'm going to go over to the fascia flat inside of the project browser. I'll right mouse click atop of the fascia flat family. I'll create a new type, and I'll type in 2x8. Press enter, and then I'll double click left mouse button click this to bring up the type properties, and I'll change this width here from 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inch. So now I have a true size, a dimensionally accurate fascia. I'll click OK. Now that that's done, I can go back to my roof tool and select the fascia tool again. And then I'm going to go ahead and select the type that I just created before, but I'm going to edit it so I can now choose the correct size fascia to use. And now I've got a fascia that I can use for this building. So with the fascia tool, it's asking me to pick lines. What I'm going to do is pick the bottom edge of my roof. So I'll zoom in here so you can see what I'm actually picking. I'm picking that edge there. And you'll notice it's on the wrong side. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'll come back and revisit that once I get all of them located. So I'm going to just move around the building and click, 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 orbit around, click, click, click on all of these bottom edges of the shingle. Make certain you don't grab the top edge. You want to be consistent in the edges that you pick. And that's all of them. So now I can click this flip arrow here, and this will flip the profile to the opposite side of the placement line. So now I've got my fascia drawn here. It's not quite correct. I want to actually move it in 1/2 an inch. So I'll select the fascia, and then in the properties, I'll change the horizontal offset to 1/2 an inch. Apply that. Now if you look carefully, you'll notice there's a little gap here where this fascia, now that it's moved in 1/2 an inch, also needs to be moved up the corresponding distance to match the rise and run of the roof. So what I'm going to do is to notice that this is the east elevation. So I'm going to go to the elevational view on the east side of the building. And this is still selected, so I can simply use my move tool and grab the corner of the fascia here and move it up until I see the vertical nearest line intersection occur there, and now you can see my fascia meets perfectly at the corner of the outside edge of the fascia and the bottom of the sheathing. I didn't move this blue line, so make certain you don't move that blue line, or try to. You really just want to move the fascia. That gives it a vertical profile offset here in the properties panel that you can see. So now I'm going to go back to my 3D view, and now I'll go ahead and put in the rake fascias. So I'll go back to the roof tool, and I'm using the same fascia, and this time I'm going to give it a horizontal offset of 1/2 an inch. I don't want it to go in quite as far as it did before. And I'll pick this one and this one. I'm not worried about it being on the outside. You saw how easy that was to fix it last time. And it uses, you need to pick 2 picks on these inner gables because of the way the roof by footprint and the nested gables are causing Revit to make the geometry. Do you see the mistake I made there? So I made a mistake here. Let me go back and fix that. So you'll notice that what happened here is I picked the upper side here, and I should have picked the lower side. So I'm going to select that again. That will remove it, and I can pick it there, and that'll add it back in. I have a couple more to do on this edge of the roof here, and then under here and here. And I think that's everything. So now if I return to my original location here, I can use the flip arrow here to push that to the inside. So now you can see that I've got both a 1/2 inch overhang on the shingles on the eave side and a 1/2 inch on this side. Sometimes you might make this 1 inch, so often I would make this a 1 inch. That gives you a little bit better realism for how the shingles actually should meet on the outside of the building, because they should extend a little bit into the gutter and not allow the water as it runs off of a roof, whether it's on the rake or the eave side, to leave stains or marks on your woodwork. So now I'm going to fix this, because you'll notice that there's a problem here how they intersect each other. So I'm going to go to my ceiling plan of all places to fix this. So I'm just going to double click the ceiling plan on the first floor. And now you can see I'm looking straight up. If you happen to have a different ceiling elevation than I have, you might find that you'll get a little rectangular bolden line area here where your ceiling plan may be cutting through the very tip of your rake rafters at the tail. And if that's the case, you can actually go into the for the ceiling plan view, you can go up into the view range, click edit, and then you can change this value to a slightly lower value. So if it's up too high, it'll be cutting through the tails. Just drop it down to a reasonable distance, like 6 feet. You can always reset it, apply it, and OK, and then you won't have that clipping problem that you'll see here in some cases. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this now. The trick to doing this is you want to grab the rake first. So I'm going to highlight the rake. If you're unsure which one's an eave and which one's the rake, if you click the rakes, you'll notice they're just in straight line segments, because that's just on the gable ends. If you click on an eave, you'll see L's like this. That'll tell you it's an eave. Another way to look for that is you'll notice if you zoom out and you take a look at the whole roof, you'll notice you have ridges here. So the rakes are always on the side where your ridges come out. So they're perpendicular to your ridges. All right, so I'm going to select this eave here, rake, I should say, and I'm going to grab this blue segment end on it, and I'm going to drag it to the end point here of the eave board, and then I'm going to take this eave fascia and drag it to the vertical line that you see here. So these now meet perfectly. This is totally nicely flush to this side, and it's butted up right smack dab against the inside face of that rake. I'm going to go around my building and do this again here. Grab this one, move it to here. Doesn't take long. You don't have too many of these to clean up on a building. So here's my rake. Grab this to here. Take this one to here. Just zoom around. Grab this one to here. Move this to the inside face there. Take my rake, move it to here. Take this, move it to here. Don't try to find the endpoints on those either. So the endpoint's great for this one. So you want to go to this endpoint here. But for this one, you actually want to drag this blue and just line it up with the inside face here. So notice my mouse doesn't have to be at the endpoint here. Move it so it's on the inside face of the rake rafter, and then you can drop it right in place. Take this one to this endpoint, this one to this inside line. Oops, wait a minute, where am I at? Hang on here, let me back out. Let me put them back where they were. So this goes to here, this one goes to here. I got confused. Grab the rake, move it to here. The eave, move it to here. The rake, which is this one, move it to here. The eave, move it to here. And not too much more to go here. This one to here. This one to here. Oops, did I get that wrong? I sure did. So let's move this to here, where it goes back to the beginning. Move this back to where it was. And then do this in the right order. Grab this one to here, and then this one to here. There we go, that's better. And then lastly, there's the last rake here, from here to here, and then from here to here, and that should be all of them. So that didn't take too long. So now if I go back to my 3D view, you can clearly see that all of my rakes are nicely done in terms of how they flush out and meet properly. So if I go to a shaded view, you can see that they all are just where they're supposed to be everywhere. Now, this little projection that you see here may be something you don't like. That can be fixed in a very easy way, actually. It's not part of an assignment, but I'll show you how I would approach that. One of the benefits to having the rakes all as one fascia component is I can do this with one void cut. So what I'm going to do here is I'll cut the bottoms of these tails a little bit everywhere, just so that they're flush to the underside of this. Let's say for some reason that's the way I wanted that particular detail to occur. But in reality, this is a very common way you'll see a rafter and an eave meet. They don't always trim the bottom side of this on buildings. So what I'm going to do here is show you a way to remedy that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the Architecture tab. I'm going to go to Components, and I'm going to Model in Place a Void. So I'll pick Model in Place. It's going to ask me what's this particular type of roof element, and I'm going to say it's a roof category element. I'm going to click OK. It's going to say give it a name. I'm just going to default to Roofs 1. And then it's going to say, well, what do I want to build here? And what I'll tell it is I want to make a void extrusion. And then it'll say, well, we can do that, but I need to know where you're going to draw this thing from. So I'm going to tell it I want to set a working plane. So I'll click the Set button here. I'm going to ask it or tell it that I wish to pick a plane. So I'll click Pick a Plane option, and then I'll click OK. And then I'll move in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab select until I get the underside of my horizontal fascia. I'll click that. Now I have my sketch tools here. What I'm going to do is quickly go into the ceiling plan again, maybe, and then I'm just going to draw a rectangle. And watch how big this rectangle is going to be. I'm just going to make it much bigger than it needs to be. Good. And then I'm going to go back to my 3D view so I can see what kind of an object I've created here. I'm going to click check, and what that has just done is it's made a rectangle that is sketched to the underside of the roof plane and projects down a distance of 1 foot. You can see that distance here. So that's what I have. So what I really want to do now is I want to use that, and I want it to cut these particular objects. So I'm going to go to the cut tool here, and I'm going to select my raked fascia, and then select this, and I'm going to say finish the model. And now you can see that in reality, with just one simple cutting object, and that was a very simple cutting object to make, you can see that I've successfully trimmed my the tails, the very tips on my fascia to match perfectly with the horizontal sections on the eave fascias.